10,000-mile round trip to Alaska and back. There's things that worked well, things that didn't. I'm going to tell you about those that didn't. And the number one is going to be a surprise. Stay tuned. Like I said in the intro, this is my bottom five. So I'm going to start with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and go to the one that is the, least effective, least helpful. Again, these are my bottom five. This is the same gear I had up for the top five, but now we're going to talk about the bottom. So number 5 is going to be kind of a surprise. I had it in the top 5, but it's also in the bottom 5. And that is the Garmin Zumo XT2. And there's 2 big reasons this is also in the bottom. In the top 5, I talked about how I downloaded the maps. I had everything in here. It would tell me where gas stations were, food, rest areas, all that. The reason it's in the bottom 5 is some of that data was inaccurate. So there was a couple of times, and it was specifically for fuel. There was a couple of times where it said there was going to be a fuel station and there was nothing. In fact, once just outside of Fairbanks, they said there was a gas station with a Subway and a bunch of other stuff. And I get there, it's the middle of nowhere with woods. I had to turn around and go back to get fuel. That was one issue. Another issue is it would say there's not another fuel station for 200 miles. However, I drive along and there would be one. Now, I can understand if it's a fuel station at, say, a lodge, that wouldn't necessarily be in here. But there were major fuel stations like a Speedway or, Petrol Canada that weren't even in here. And it gave me undue worry that I was going to run out of fuel when there was plenty of fuel stations. And then the third reason this ends up on my bottom list is just before I left, or just as I left, Garmin had an update, both a firmware and a map update. However, because I was just leaving, I figured, you know what, I will wait until I'm back, yes, 3 weeks, or maybe even up all the way before I do the update, because I don't want anything to go haywire while I'm relying on it. Well, what happened is after, I think it was a week, it stopped showing anything on maps. So actually I was driving along and there was no roads, no nothing. And I had to use my phone, which luckily I had also downloaded my maps and had to use that. So those main reasons, gas stations and the fact that it forced a shutdown in order to do an update, is why this is number 5 on my worst 5 for the trip. Number 4 is no fault of its own. And I'll get to the reason why is the chin mount flexible adhesive mount. What I did is I took one of these, and these are great products. Don't get me wrong. I'm quite impressed with the product. And I mounted it to the front of the windshield. My plan was to mount my action camera here on the front, use the remote to turn it on and off. Well, the reason why this is in the bottom 5 isn't, like I said, any fault of the chin mount, but it's the fault of the action camera that I have. Which brings us to the number 3. So I have an Akaso action camera, mount and everything. This is the setup that mounts it to the chin of my helmet, but the mount itself, or the camera itself, quite small, very much like a GoPro Hero. DJI makes one very similar, but this is the one that I chose. It was a budget alternative, and of course you get what you pay for. Unbeknownst to me when I ordered it, and it's my fault, not theirs, didn't realize the only way to have a microphone on this was either the built-in microphone or a wired microphone that you have to plug in. Well, when it's in its watertight container, which I just removed it from, you can't hear anything. The built-in microphone doesn't work. And if there's no way to plug in and wire out a plug-in microphone. So I think I'm going to replace this. It works fine for use in a studio like this or other areas where you don't have to use it as a true action camera. But for my use and trying to put it on the front of the motorcycle, it didn't work out so well. The battery life is short and you can't leave it just running. So I had to turn it on and it shuts itself back off in 5 minutes. So if I wanted to use it here, I'd have to pull over, turn it on, use the remote, which you can put on your arm, to turn it on and turn it off. Problem is, after 5 minutes, it shuts itself off, and you have to repeat the whole process again. So this earned the number 3 worst item on my list. Number 2, and this is going to be some controversy because the people that sell this love it, and I understand why they love it. My number 2 item is Bug Slide. So Bug Slide works great for normal commuting, normal riding, back and forth to work, back and forth to a bike show. The way it works is you spray the chemical on your windshield or your helmet or the headlight, let it sit for a moment, and you wipe off the bugs. It works when the bugs aren't northern Canada and eastern Alaska bugs. I'm going to put in right here a picture of what the bugs look like when I was riding through British Columbia and going up to Northwest Territories. The bugs were so thick, it covered the saddlebags, and the driving lights were so covered, you couldn't even see through them. The only way to get those bugs off was a hot terry cloth towel or microfiber towel. You let it soak, and then it wipes off. Bug Slide, I'm sorry, you don't work for Alaska and northern Canada bugs. And then the number 1 item that's on my bottom list, it's the one thing on here that I haven't picked up yet. That is my drone. So just before the trip, I bought a DJI Flip drone. My plan was to take all of these glorious drone footage pictures in various parts of Alaska, Denali National Park, the glaciers, even some of the other, state and municipal parks. The problem is, and the reason why this is on the bottom of my list is everywhere I went, there were signs, no drones, no drones, no drones. So though this is an excellent drone, especially for someone like me who's just learning, I couldn't use it. So the bag that it came in and all of the equipment took up space in my saddlebag, my pannier, and I just couldn't use it. So there's my top 5, or should I say bottom 5. The Garmin Zumo XT2, the windshield mount, the Akaso action camera, Bug Slide, and the drone. Please give me a thumbs up, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. You'll be notified of more content. And then always, thanks for watching. Go Forward Friend.